Business process flows can ensure that users enter data and complete business processes in a consistent way. When dealing with customer engagements, new user onboarding, invoice approval, sales cycles, or a whole range of other structured processes, business process flow can ensure that users operate in a consistent manner. This can lead to a reduction in unhappy customers, inconsistent experiences, missing data, simplified business processes, more engaged new starters, and many other business benefits. My name is Mark Stokes. If you haven't seen me on the other Collab 365 videos, then it's nice to meet you. I'm a huge fan of Microsoft Flow, so it's great to be able to share some of my experiences with you today. I'm a Flownaut, or a super user, in the official Microsoft Flow community. I produce the occasional video about Flow, and I've even been called a fanboy. I've no idea why they would say that. I run a services business called Redplane, and we complete traditional SharePoint and Office 365 projects, and lately we've been getting involved in much more Power Apps and Flow from a project basis. I'm also co-founder of Untitled Intranet, a cost-effective internet-in-a-box template that's doing incredibly well at the moment. So if you need any help in those areas, please do feel free to get in touch. I'll put my email and my Twitter at Mark Stokes or mark.stokes@thisisatolo.com. So please get in touch. We're actively looking to take on new customers in all these areas. So no matter how big or small your project, please do get in touch with me. Before we go any further, I really recommend that you take the All Access Pass. This gives you on-demand access to all session videos from the Flow Summit, the Summit companion ebooks with in-depth notes from all the videos, a $50 voucher to use on Flow freelancers in micro jobs, a 40% discount on Power Apps and Flow training from Laura Rogers, beginning guide to Microsoft Flow ebook. There's also a time-limited offer on the checkout to grab all of the Power Apps ebooks and sessions from last time as well, and a 20% discount voucher for the Encodian Flow connector. So it really is worthwhile, so you should definitely go and have a look at that. So what exactly are business process flows? Well, they're like normal flows, but they break different stages of a process up into little sections, with each stage designed to be completed before you move on to the next, all the while giving the user a visual representation of where they are in the overall process. They're designed to allow businesses to articulate and model complex or just structured business processes into a technical solution. And they ensure people enter data consistently and follow the same steps every time they work with a customer, for example. A huge advantage over a regular flow is the ability to easily take user input at each stage of the process. This can reduce training requirements. Because users don't need to worry about where they are in the process, they just start at the start and they visually work through the steps. They're essentially guided by the process itself. So what sort of things can we do with the business process flow? Well, we can onboard new starters in a consistent way. We can ensure sales staff follow a common sales process. We can seamlessly onboard new customers. And this is the first time that they'll be engaging with your business, so you want to make it a good experience and a consistent experience. You can track employee reviews from self-appraisal to manager appraisal, and anything that follows a predictable and predefined structure. So what can business process flows actually do? Well, first you define a set of stages and steps, which are then displayed in a control at the top of the form. Each stage contains a number of steps that represent fields that can take in data from the user, and you progress to the next stage using the Next Stage button. You can have up to 30 steps in each stage. Of course, you can make stages and steps required to ensure that certain parts of the process are completed before the user can move on to the next stage. And once all the stages are completed, the flow is complete. Under the hood, business process flows use entities. Dynamics people might be more familiar with this term, as it's the same fundamental data structures that power things like Dynamics 365 CRM. An entity is equatable to an object or a database table, or more generally a description of a thing. A customer might be an entity, a staff member or a laptop or a supplier or a product or a quote. All of these things can be described by an entity. In business process flows, you can use a single entity or you can span multiple entities throughout the process. For example, you might have a process that starts with an inquiry, that moves on to an opportunity, then goes into a quote or an order, and then maybe an invoice before finally returning to close the opportunity. Okay, so where's the data stored? We haven't mentioned SQL Server or SharePoint or Azure Tables or anything else like that, and we're actually not going to. Welcome to the Common Data Service. This lets you securely store and manage data that's used by business applications, and it's stored within those entities that we've just spoken about within Azure Services. The CDS gives you a large set of out-of-the-box entities, and we'll look at those later, which may be useful, but more often than not, you're probably going to want to define your own entities that match your own stages and steps. The great thing with the CDS is that the data is natively accessible across multiple business applications like Power Apps, Flow, Power BI, and things like that. Okay, so what are the benefits of CDS over traditional storage locations? I'm going to read these bits because this is straight off the Microsoft website. But Microsoft states the benefits as they are easy to manage. So both the metadata and data are stored in the cloud. You don't need to worry about the details of how they're stored. They're easy to secure. Data is securely stored so that users can see it only if you grant them access. Role-based security allows you to control access to entities for different users within your organization. Access your Dynamics 365 data. Data from your Dynamics 365 applications is also stored within the Common Data Service. So that means you can quickly build apps which leverage your Dynamics 365 data and extend your apps using Power Apps. Rich metadata. Data types and relationships are leveraged directly within Power Apps. Logic and validation. You can define calculated fields, business rules, workflows, and business process flows to ensure data quality and drive business processes. It's worth mentioning that those workflows aren't Microsoft flows. These are workflows that you get in Dynamics 365, so there might be a bit of a confusion. We might have a quick look at these or let's see what it looks like if we click a button later, but they are different workflows. They're Dynamics workflows, not necessarily Microsoft flows, although we can hook flow into it. Okay, that's a whole other conversation, but just be aware that there might be some conflicting terms as we go through this today. Productivity tools. Entities are available within the add-ins for Microsoft Excel to increase productivity and ensure data accessibility. Okay, so it sounds expensive. So, okay, are you ready for this? This is the licensing bit, and this is taken directly from the CDS pricing pages. I'm going to read some of this, so apologize if I'm looking down. App makers can use most of the entities available within the Common Data Service to create apps and flows for users who have only a Power Apps Plan 1 license. However, some entities contain complex business logic that requires app users to have a Power Apps Plan 2 or a Microsoft Flow Plan 2 license. An even smaller set of entities tied to Dynamics 365 products requires Canvas and model-driven app users to have a license for the corresponding Dynamics 365 product if they need to create, update, or delete records within the entities. And these are referred to as restricted entities. You need a Flow Plan 2 in order to create business process flows, and some Dynamics 365 licenses include Flow Plan 2. Okay, it is confusing. There's a lot of different variants. So if we just go through quickly and compare the difference between a Power Apps Plan 1 and Plan 2, the Power Apps Plan 1 is $7 per user per month, and the Plan 2 is $40 per user per month. So that becomes quite expensive. So you need to be aware of what you're going to be using this for. We can just have a quick look at some of the differences you get between Plan P1 and P2. We can see from the shot here that Plan P1, you don't get the ability to run model-driven apps that use the custom data service, so you will need Plan P2 there. Now, note as well that it's talking about run model-driven apps. It's not just for the person creating, it's for the people who are actually running those apps as well. Okay, so now that we don't care about how much it costs, let's go and build one. Okay, here we go. So we're going to start in Flow. And the first thing we're going to do is expand the data options. And we can see in here the entities option. Now, the first thing I want to start with is the option sets, and we don't see them in Flow. So we're going to go over to Power Apps and expand option sets. And option sets are really about lookup. So we have different categories or yes or no booleans. Okay, this comes as allowed, not allowed. These basically give us the ability to do lookups. So, for example, fiscal year. So we can choose from the different fiscal years. So we get quite a few out of the box here. Such as like sales status and things like that, won, lost. That kind of thing. So we're going to use some of these option sets later on to limit the input that users can actually make. We're going to create a new option set here. And we'll call this platform. We can enter a description if we want to. Such as SharePoint version. And we can enter some items in here. So this could be SharePoint 2013, add new item, SharePoint 2016, maybe SharePoint 2019, and SharePoint Online. We can just press enter at the end of each one to go on to the new line. So we've just expanded out the options. Let's just see what other options we have here. So we can actually have the ability to change the value of our item. Now, I don't recommend you do this because, as I'll show you now, if we try and put our own options in there, it just gets very confused. For some reason, it wants to use numbers in there. I have no idea how they're calculated, but as far as I'm concerned, I think we're better just to try and leave them as they are. So we'll just try and set that back to what it was. If we look at the others, we can just see them have their own versions in there, but like I said, just maybe leave them well alone. Save that. Then we're going to create a new option set. We'll call this close type. So this will be whether we've actually won or lost the option. Save that. Okay, so they're the two option sets. We could create more if we want to limit the user input, but for what we want to do now, that's fine. So if we go back into entities, we can see all the out-of-the-box entities there. So we've got things like appointments, so all the fields that you associate with an appointment. So we can use these out-of-the-box ones if we want to. There's various forms available as well, so card views and input forms, things like that. Okay, so we go back into Flow. If we click on Entities and Flow, we can say all that does is that just directs us straight into the Power Apps user interface, and that's how we interact with our entities. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create, actually have a quick look through some of the option ones, so things like position, maybe what a user looks like, so how we reference a system user. So lots of entities in there. A lot of these are used for Dynamics 365 already. And then we just want to go and create our own maybe. So we'll just create a new entity and we'll call this opportunity. So we can set the plural of the name as well, because sometimes the singular term may represent the plural, so it gives us the ability to change that, which is quite nice. It's important now to change the primary field as well. So we can't change this after we create it for the primary field. So it's important we set it now to what we want it to be. We can enable attachments and things like that. So this is more of a Dynamics CRM piece in here. We can set descriptions if we want to. We can set things like entity type and ownership, set collaboration, whether we allow feedback on it, and whether it's an activity task. You can change those. And I don't want to go into details. There's so much in here that we can do. It will just make it too difficult. So we'll leave it for now. We have this interesting one to enable change tracking for the flow. So this gives us a more reliable way of hooking into and tracking changes to the entities. Something we're not going to look at now, but we can start using that for triggers for flow and things like that. So we'll just leave the settings as they are. And we have our entity with our company name. And what we want to do now, we'll just save that. We just want to go and add some new fields. We can see it's automatically provisioned it for me, so it's available to use straight away. So the fields we want to track for a particular opportunity, so we can set the first one as first name. It's going to be text, make it searchable. I'm not going to set required because I'll set the required options later on in the business process flow. Maybe add a last name. Oops, bad typing there. Okay, and leave everything default. Email, want to track the user's email who's sending an inquiry in. And we'll set that as an email. We'll see all these different data types here. So we have the option of storing things as email, URL, ticker symbol, auto numbers, time zones, dates, images, things like that. So quite a complex set of data types available. We're just going to leave this one as email. I think I just might save it there. One thing you might find is if you make a mistake in creating your fields, the error handling is not particularly great and doesn't give you detailed messages on which field it is that's causing a problem, so you end up deleting them all. So I like to make regular saves when creating the fields. Create a phone item. Maybe want to know what country they're coming from as well. So ideally we'd use an option set here, but I haven't created one because there'd be too many options, so we'll just store it as text for now. Third via, maybe we want to track where people hear about us as well, so where they come from LinkedIn or from this Collab 365 video or from Facebook or Google. It's good data for us to track. And we also want to know what platform they're operating on. So this is one of the option sets that we created earlier. So if we change the data type to option set, then we get the ability to choose that platform option set we just created. We can also set a default value as well. Most of our customers are SharePoint Online, so let's just leave that as default. Make it as easy for our users as possible. Give it another save. Maybe seats. Maybe we want to track the number of seats as well, how many users the company has. And maybe also want to capture the pain points, so why they're looking for, in this case, a new internet, so what they're struggling with and why they want it, and then maybe what their basic requirements are. So this is the kind of information we may elicit during a conversation with them, not necessarily from the original inquiry form, but maybe further on. So we put all these properties into the entity anyway, so we can track all of that information we need when we go through a sales process. Give that another quick save. Maybe some steps as well. So as we work through the sales process, maybe we want to track when the demo's been completed, and then we can use these as gateways for our process to say we can't progress on to the next stages until these items are ticked as yes. So we'll set them as yes, no fields. And then maybe after a demo's been completed, we can send them a follow-up email or require the follow-up email is set. Again, make that as a yes, no, default no. Then after that, so once the demos and follow-ups are done and we have lots of conversations, then the next step in the process will be to agree a price. Again, yes, no, these are just checkpoints in the process. You can obviously fill this out with far more fields and columns if you want to. Terms agreed. Again, yes, no. So these steps have to be completed before we can move on to the next stage. And then finally we come to the close type, so whether we win or lose the sale. And that was the option set we created before, so we can choose our option set in there. No default value. Okay, give that a save. But actually one thing we want to do is if we lose the sale, then we want to track why. So we'll just put in a bit of free text as to the reason why we lost the sale. Maybe it's to a competitor, maybe it was too expensive, maybe it didn't have a particular feature the customer needed, so we just want to track that. Okay, so there's our entity for our opportunity. So all the things we can do here, we can set relationships between entities if we want to. We can create many-to-one, one-to-many, or many-to-many. We won't go into this today, but it gets quite powerful, the relationships we can set up. There's business rules. We can create a number of views as well, so we can do filters based on the fields that we've just set up. Create multiple forms, so straight away we get a main form, a card view of it. Just click and have a look at that. Here we can create our form for creating a new opportunity. So we get a general. We can create multiple tabs here, so we could actually, if there's a complex form, we could break it down into multiple tabs nice and easily. We'll just rename this to new inquiry. We have to put a name in. Oops. Again. First format, there's one column, two columns. So it gets an out of the box capability here. And then we can just drag in the fields that we want to be on our initial form. So just find first name, there it is. That's nice. So just drag over the fields that we want to enter at that point. We want their email address, the phone number, country they're in. Oops, missed that one. And then where they came across it. So from an initial inquiry, this is the sort of information that maybe we'll get in. And then we'll get the other information as we work through the process. Get that form saved, and we need to publish that as well to make it visible. Done, all looks good. Other things we can do, add controls, and it just gives us the ability to create new tabs in there in these sections. Okay, so we go back to flow. Then what we can do, we can create a new flow. So if we go into business process flows, this is where we create our BPS. And we'll just go and create a new flow that's for our Untitled sales process. Unique name, and then we choose our entity from the CDS that we just created, so we'll choose opportunity here. Click next. Okay, so this is the screen that we see. If I just zoom in a bit, make it a little bit more visible on the video. But this is the screen that we see for setting up our stages and our steps. So we can see straight away we get a first stage created, and we get a default step created here as well. So we just want to rename this stage. And what we'll do, we'll build up the different stages in our process and the steps that need to be completed within that. Just a category as well. And we can see it's got our entity opportunity chosen and our default step here. So we're just going to choose the data field that the user needs to enter. So there's a data step, so we're going to enter data here. We'll make that required. Onto components, so we can just drag a new data step into our stage. Choose a data field. And first name, you can see it automatically updates the step name, which is quite nice, make that required. But I find this a bit fiddly. You can either add new stages there on the menu bar. Depends if you like dragging and dropping or if you find that quicker. Last name not required. Maybe someone fills in the forms and put the last name in. Have their email. Make that required. We need a way of replying to them. The phone number. Now maybe they don't fill in the phone number on the inquiry form, maybe just their email, so we'll leave that optional. And lastly, the country they're from. That's definitely required. And then the last one, how they found us. Okay, so we can create a new stage here. So the second stage in our process, once we've had the original inquiry in, then we're going to go to a demo. So this is all about developing the opportunity. Again, that category really is aligned to dynamic CRM and a sales process, so it fits here. Oh, I had the wrong step selected. We'll put the company name in here again and make it required. We've already entered it, but it's just nice to show that on the different stages. Just again, it reinforces the company that you're currently entering information for. Entirely up to you what you put in there. And we'll add a step in. We're just going to add the platform that they are on, because maybe they don't put that in the initial inquiry form. That's part of the conversation we have with them. And how many seats or how many users they're talking about. Maybe have a different pricing model for the number of users they have, so maybe we want to know that. And then this is where we can start to understand their pain points and also their basic requirements. We won't set these required because we're not going to stop the process from working if we're not able to capture that. Okay. So again, we don't have to use the menu. We can actually just drag a stage on. I definitely prefer drag and drop, I think, in this environment. We'll call this stage. Oh, actually, we're going to negotiate. Show company name again. We're being consistent across our stages. And actually, we want to change the names of these. So, in fact, so we want to use demo in this one. So let's go and change. We'll change the name of this stage first. We'll call this gather information. So maybe we have an email conversation before we do the demo and just gather some information. And then we'll call this stage demo. Once we have that initial information, we can go to the demo with them. This is about developing the opportunity. And the steps in here, we're just going to clarify when the demo has been completed. That's required. Can't progress until the demo has been done. And then we want to track and ensure that a follow-up email has been sent after the demo. So this is where we're talking about providing a consistency of process. We can make sure the salespeople have to send that email, or they acknowledge that they've sent the email, so customers get a consistent experience across all of the salespeople in the team. And then we can move on to negotiate. And in this stage of the process, show the company name again like we did before. So at this point, again, we'll probably have some offline conversations with them, and at some point we'll agree a price. And we should also agree the terms as well, the terms and conditions with them. So once we've got through those gates, we can just have those yes, no tick boxes to confirm that we've hit that stage. Obviously, we could put more information in here. We could track more of the content. I don't want to do too much here to make it too confusing, but you can see where this goes. And then finally, once we've agreed a price and terms, then we want to close the opportunity, and we've either won that or lost that. Okay, so remember that comes from one of our option sets. We'll just choose our company name in again. We want to choose our close type. That's definitely required. And then we could put in our lost reason. So if we lost it, then we could track the reason why that happened. So actually what we can do instead though, because we don't want to put a lost reason in there if we won it. So we only want the salesperson to fill in the lost reason if it's actually been lost. And we can't just drag these. It'd be nice if we could just drag these actions between, but that doesn't work from here. So just delete that lost type out, that lost reason out of here. Oops, I didn't actually save my conditions. Let's just set that again. Why did we lose that? Close type is equal to lost. Need to make sure we save that, apply it. Now you may notice you don't actually just drop the data step straight onto the condition. What we need to do is we actually need to create a stage depending on whether it's a positive or a negative. So if the condition is true, we add a new stage in. Give that a name, lost reason. Just call it resolve. And then our data step, this is where we want to capture the lost reason. And obviously that's required if we get to this point. So that's our business process flow. That's the step that users need to go through to actually take a sales from inquiry all the way to close. So we can save that now. Just click validate. Validation is successful, it's not identified any issues. And we can just reactivate it to make sure that's then available to be used. Okay, so we have our business process flow. Now we can go back and we can actually enable it. So by default it's disabled, so turn it on. And then we can run it. So if we click run, let's see what it looks like. So straight away we can see across the top we have all of our different stages, and it makes it very clear which stage we're currently on. And we have that form. So the original form that we created for the new inquiry, it shows it here on the page, so we can fill in all the details we need. You might realise that's not my real phone number. Tracking where we're headed via. So it's a nice easy way to track that information. Alternatively, we can actually click on the stage, and it also gives us the ability to enter the content here. Now you may notice I don't have any way to move to the next stage. I'd expect a button there. I've entered all the information, it's all correct, but I can't seem to move to the next stage. So what's going on? Well, I'm zoomed in. Take it full page. No, definitely no next stage button there. So where does it go? I fill the information in. It says it's all correct. Maybe I've got zoom. No, we've got no zoom. No funny HTML going on. What you actually have to do at this point is you've got to actually save the option, the new item, before you can progress. So if you go up and just click save, now it opens up the ability to move through. So it's not very clear, it doesn't guide you that that's what needs to be done, so you can spend a bit of time looking around before you get there. But now we can see that it's passed over the company name. It's not changed the form here because we only have the form associated to the entity, which we show on the first one. So we're just going to go for simplicity and for time. We'll fill in the rest of the details just straight off the top here. So put the number of seats, what pain points we've listed from the conversations, and then put in whatever their basic requirements are so we can track that. Now all the steps are completed. There we can click next stage again. Now we could save this, go out of it, come back in. We wouldn't obviously go through this quickly. It would be something that may take days or weeks or even months to get through. We can just keep going backwards and forwards in the stages. But again, the company name is passed through as well. We don't have to re-enter it. And then once we're done, we can actually mark that we've completed the demo. And then once we've actually sent the follow-up email, we can tick yes. And then that will let us move on to the next stage. We could deactivate it, we could delete it at any time. We can actually switch processes. We can assign it to a different person. We haven't configured permissions on here yet, but we could potentially go and assign it to a different user. So we have a lot of capability of moving these, the responsibility of these flows through different people. We see a lot of the screens here look like they've come straight from Dynamics CRM. So we could just choose a user and give them access to an ability to edit that record. Could email a link. That's just popped up a little window off my screen, just a little Outlook email window with a link to the opportunity in. I can't drag it over the top. And we could also trigger a flow here. So we could actually have the ability here to just run a flow on this, maybe to again share it with somebody or to run some check on it, so we can configure a flow in the background against this entity and this record. We can just for now move on to the next stage. To negotiate, price agreed and terms agreed. So move on to our next stage. We can choose our close type. You see here we can't actually see the final stage. Remember we had one after the condition. So if we choose one, it just doesn't show the final stage of lost reason for us. And then we've finished that because we've completed all steps in all of the stages. So that's now marked as completed. So we go and create another one. I'll just do this very quickly so that we can run through just see what happens when we have one lost. So if we fill in all the details, So similar information to go through quickly. Yeah, we definitely have some customers who want the world. Demo and email done. Yeah, price agreed and terms agreed. So everything's looking good, but unfortunately we lost it. So all of a sudden what we see now when we go to the next stage is enable the lost reason stage. So we can click onto the next stage, and now it's going to make me put the reason in, a description in. Yeah, sometimes people just want the world for peanuts, so it's not going to work. So we can finish that. So we have a new record here. But we've followed a consistent route through our sales cycle. So anyone who comes in as a new salesperson, they can just follow all those steps. And actually, as you can see, it does reduce the training requirements a bit because it's very obvious what they need to do. Now, of course, they could be far more complex than we've got here. But, that's what we need. So that's our business process flow created. And that's how we can associate it to our entity. So what we want to do now, we'll go and have a look at a Power App, and we'll create a Power App that will give us a nicer interface to managing those items. So we start by creating a model-driven app. We want to give it a meaningful name. We've created a new Power App, so a good name here. So it automatically creates as our unique name, and we can put a description in. You may notice this slightly different interface to what we get when we create normal Power Apps. That's because it's actually powered off of the Dynamics suite of tools. If we want to, we can change the default image as well, so we can untick default image and have a big bank of available images in there. Some are just icons for use, and some are actually more pictures that we can use, so you can pick what's most appropriate. Crying, smiling, yeah, most of my apps. A few other options as well, so we can change the default welcome page for the app or enable a mobile offline. We're not going to look at that stuff today, that's things you can look at in the future. Now, when we go in, first thing we notice, we have a little exception around the sitemap, and one thing I find a bit frustrating here, which happens, is that can cause an error. But what we're going to do now is going to add in our entity that we want to include in the app, and we'll go and save that. But what happens is, if we try and edit the sitemap, then we get an error. And it doesn't really tell you much what's going on here, so it could be quite difficult to actually go and debug it. And if we go and actually just try and load that up, then we still get this error. It's a bit frustrating. I've never really tied down exactly what causes it or what you do to stop getting this error. But the simple solution is, if we just go back and edit this app now, we can see that the error message around the sitemap is gone. We haven't actually done anything. So I can only assume it needs to save some configuration in the background, and then when we come back into it, it's available. But that's just something to be aware of. I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out what's actually going on there. So the first thing we can do is we can create a bunch of tabs in our form. So we're just going to create an area called New Inquiry. So this is just our sitemap, so a bit like tabs. We can put a title in. It gives us the ability to put multilingual titles and descriptions in, so that's really nice. I'll just save that. Oh, we've got an error. Oh, okay, that's because there's a sub area in here which I haven't actually configured. So the New Inquiry is a group name, and here we just want to put in a sub area. So we'll just pick the entity that we want to interact with. Change the title. And you could create multiple groups and multiple sub areas in here. It just gives it a bit of navigation throughout the app. So we can make these really quite complicated. Just update the ID as well so it's more meaningful. We could pass parameters into it if we want to. Set various other things like more titles, multilingual titles and privileges and things like that. So this actually gets quite powerful. We're not going to have time to go into all of this today or even any of this today. So these are things that you can go and have a look at in your own time afterwards. There's far too much for us to cover in an hour. So we'll just save and publish that, make it So So basically that's just gone and actually built our Power App for us. The other thing I can do is attach a business process flow into it. So this is going to allow the Power App framework to go and build the app for us. Because we've attached an entity on there, it automatically adds all the sections for us to track records of that entity nice and easily. So it builds a lot of the application for us. And now we can see we created Bob the Builders before, so that's showing automatically. We can click into it. I'll just delete that so we can start fresh. But straight away, it's actually built as a Power App that has a table where we can view all of our active opportunities. So it's used our entity name there and active opportunities. We can show charts. We haven't configured anything here, so there's nothing for it to show. We can email a link or create new items in here. And straight away, we see all of the new functionality we had previously, but it's just surfaced up in a nice Power App. So it gives us the management of existing records that we saw on the previous page and lets us create new ones. But other than that, this is exactly the same as we saw on the business process flow before. So we'll just put in a couple of records just to show what it looks like. It's still not my phone number, so don't try ringing it. So this is all exactly the same as we saw previously. Give it a save. Remember, we need to save it to get the next stage button. Just work through quickly. Big customer, this one. Yeah, typical requirements that we get. Again, just work through the processes. Now remember, we could use different entities here. I choose to use the same entity. We can also embed JavaScript on these form pages, so we can show and hide different fields on this form based on what stage we're in. So that gives us the way we could actually customize the form. I'm not getting into that customization stuff today, so that's something to look at for the future. So we can now see that we have that record created. So it's exactly as you'd expect. It's just going to be a table of records, and the more we build, the more that we see here. Obviously, we can share it. We can email a link. This has opened up a page off on my other browser, on my other screen. Again, we can share it. It's all the same stuff that we saw previously. I'll close that so we don't share more down as details. So I could share that with him, give him different permissions. I can also initiate flows from here, so I could create a new flow. So I could create a flow, a proper actual flow here that takes trigger from the common data service. So this flow could detect if a new item is created or if an item is updated in these processes. It automatically selects my environment, my entity name. And then the first thing I would do here is I would just go and create my favorite action, which is a compose action, and this will show me what I can elicit from the trigger of my flow. So I can get the stage ID, so I can see what stage it's in. I could go and alert people based on the stage if I wanted to. I could send a report out when it's completed, or do whatever I would normally do in flow. So this is a really nice way for us to integrate the two business process flows and flows into one. We can run reports on here as well. We don't have any records or reports set up, so we won't look at that. We could export the data to Excel as well based on the view we see here. So it's downloaded at the bottom for me. We can import data from Excel if we wanted to. We've got a lot of capability. Now remember, all this has been built for us out of the box using Power Apps. We haven't setting this up. We can also create new views as well, so we could set some filters on the views to say we only want to see opportunities that we've won, maybe. So we can set some views here. And we can change columns. The default view, you may notice, didn't have the most useful set of columns, so we can just change the columns. Again, bear in mind, this is not SharePoint based. If you look at the screens we have here, this is all coming from a Dynamics based platform. So if you're like me and you come from a SharePoint background, it's a bit of getting your head around the way data works and is stored and is accessible. It does make sense once you start getting used to it. Let's create the columns that we want to add into our view. Save this, so we'll just save this. So it creates the default views, and then this will group them into a whole load of my views. So we'll just call this my opportunities. Go back. If we just refresh. Drop down the views, and we can see my opportunities in here, and this is the view I've just set up with the columns I chose. So we could deactivate items as well. So it gives, out of the box, gives the ability to deactivate business process flow instances. So then it hides from active and goes to inactive opportunities. So again, like I say, we get quite a lot of stuff out of the box. There's a heck of a lot of stuff we could actually do to customize it. But just to get us going, that really gives us a good feel for what there is there. This screen is quite confusing. I'm not going to go into lots of detail just because we don't have the time left, but we could bring in lots of different business process flows, different entities into here. This is a bit where you're going to have to go and start playing around with it. I'll see if we can do some future videos that go into a bit more detail. But like I say, there is way too much in this to cover in 1 hour. So there we have it. So what we've seen today is we've built a business process flow. I've introduced you to the concepts, and I've explained a bit about the licensing and the pricing and what it is. Now, you may think at the end of this session that it's very complicated, and I'm sorry to say it really is. One of the hardest things that I had when I started doing business process flows is just figuring out how it all wires together. So there's a lot of things today that I've not shown you, and a lot of things that you can do. But hopefully what I've done is just given you the introduction to get the bare essentials so you can build your first business process flow. There's a lot of things for you to then take on and see about how to extend and make it more usable in your business. Do you use one entity or multiple entities? How do you customize the form across the different stages? I've given you some of the options that you can do there, but I'm sure it will actually raise more questions than I've answered. But like I say, the intention is to give you that introduction to it, to show you the power of what you can achieve, show you what it is and show you what it isn't. So hopefully we've achieved those goals today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing you on the next virtual summit, which I believe is going to be around SharePoint. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the day.